In 1618, Sir Walter Raleigh was executed by the English crown. Officially condemned for treason, his real crime was reviving the legend of a golden city that never existed. But this wasn't just any lie. It was the most expensive deception in human history, one that consumed European empires for over 200 years and turned the jungles of Guyana into a graveyard of dreams. The year was 1537, when Spanish conquistador Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada first encountered the Muisca people near present-day Bogotá, Colombia. The Spanish had already conquered the Aztec Empire in 1521 and the Inca Empire in 1532, filling their coffers with stolen gold. They were hungry for more. The Muisca performed a ceremony that mesmerized the Spanish. During the inauguration of a new cacique, or chief, the chosen leader would be stripped naked and covered head to toe in gold dust mixed with tree resin. As expeditions throughout Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador failed to locate the Golden Kingdom between 1540 and 1580, the myth began migrating eastward. Each failure pushed the supposed location of El Dorado further into unexplored territories. Francisco Orellana's epic descent of the Amazon River in 1541 was more about survival than treasure hunting. But later writers linked his journey to the El Dorado myth, fueling speculation that the Golden Kingdom lay deep in South America's interior. Antonio de Berrio led 3 separate expeditions between 1584 and 1591, each pushing deeper into the Orinoco Basin and closer to what would become Guyana. By 1590, European attention had focused on the Guiana Shield, a massive geological formation covering modern-day Guyana, Venezuela, Suriname, French Guiana, and northern Brazil. This region possessed everything necessary for a perfect mythical setting: impenetrable rainforests, uncharted rivers, towering Tepuy Mountains, and indigenous populations with sophisticated gold-working skills. Sir Walter Raleigh's involvement with the El Dorado myth began in 1594 when he was imprisoned in the Tower of London on charges of treason against Queen Elizabeth I. Desperate to regain royal favor, Raleigh latched onto reports of Spanish expeditions searching for El Dorado in the Orinoco region. In February 1595, Raleigh sailed from England with a fleet of 5 ships and 150 men. He captured the Spanish settlement of San José de Oruña in Trinidad, interrogating Spanish prisoners about El Dorado. Antonio de Berrio, the Spanish governor, provided Raleigh with detailed accounts of his searches for the Golden Kingdom. Raleigh's false claims had extraordinary staying power. European cartographers included Lake Paraíba and Manoa on maps published between 1596 and 1800. The lake appeared on Dutch maps in 1599, Spanish charts in 1605, French atlases in 1630, and German publications throughout the 17th century. Each map became more elaborate, showing detailed coastlines around the imaginary lake, marking the locations of supposed golden cities and indicating trade routes to these non-existent destinations. The Dutch West India Company, which established colonies along the Guyana coast beginning in 1616, spent enormous resources searching for Lake Paraíba. Dutch expeditions in 1629, 1634, 1657, and 1675 pushed deep into Guyana's interior, following river systems toward the supposed lake. Laurens Storm van 's Gravesande, Dutch commander of Essequibo from 1738 to 1772, organized systematic explorations of the Rupununi region. His expeditions in 1739, 1741, and 1744 penetrated farther into Guyana's interior than any previous European efforts, establishing trading posts and mapping river systems. These Dutch expeditions encountered sophisticated indigenous societies with extensive trade networks and impressive gold-working skills. However, they never found Lake Paraim or the Golden Cities. Instead, they established the foundation for Guyana's plantation economy and slave-based sugar production. Despite his initial failure, Raleigh convinced King James I to fund a second expedition in 1617. Now 65 years old and in poor health, Raleigh sailed to Guyana with 14 ships and 1,000 men, promising to find gold without attacking Spanish settlements. The expedition was a disaster. Raleigh became ill and remained at the mouth of the Orinoco while his men, led by his son Walter and Captain Lawrence Keymis, sailed upstream. They attacked the Spanish settlement of Santo Tomé, killing the governor and burning the town. Walter Raleigh Jr. was killed in the fighting. The definitive end of the El Dorado myth came with Alexander von Humboldt's scientific expeditions between 1799 and 1804. This Prussian naturalist applied rigorous scientific methods to South American exploration, using precise instruments and careful observation. Humboldt's expedition to the Orinoco region in 1800 proved conclusively that Lake Paraim did not exist. Using barometric measurements, astronomical observations, and systematic mapping, he demonstrated that the geographic conditions described by Raleigh were impossible. Humboldt determined that seasonal flooding in the Rupununi savanna created temporary lake-like conditions that early explorers had misinterpreted. During the wet season, vast areas became inundated, creating the illusion of a great inland sea. But these floods receded annually, leaving no permanent lake. His scientific report, published in 1814, finally removed Lake Paraim from European maps and ended serious expeditions seeking El Dorado in Guyana. Throughout the El Dorado period, indigenous peoples of Guyana employed sophisticated strategies to deal with European intrusion. Groups like the Makushi, Wapishana, and Carib often provided Europeans with stories about distant golden cities, possibly as diplomatic tactics to redirect explorers away from their territories. Indigenous oral traditions did include accounts of wealthy rulers and impressive cities, but these were likely cultural memories of migrations, spiritual narratives, or metaphorical stories, rather than literal treasure maps. Europeans, filtering these accounts through their own cultural expectations, transformed them into evidence for El Dorado. From ancient ceremonies to modern oil discoveries, the El Dorado legend continues to influence how we understand wealth, exploration, and the power of human imagination. Subscribe to explore more hidden stories that shaped our world.